So stick with me on this one as it's a little strange, but The Brightest Void by Tarja. This is actually a prequel to a forthcoming album that she will be releasing full-length entitled The Shadow Self. And Tarja herself explained that the reason why she's opting for 2 releases as opposed to just 1 is a gift to the fans, that there were no songs on that's part of these sessions that she wanted to just quote-unquote keep to herself, so she offers them as a gift to everybody. It's kind of interesting. It's a neat little idea, and whenever The Shadow Self emerges later on this year, the Brightest Void will be included, I believe, with either deluxe versions of that, or it'll just be packaged together completely. So I guess you could say this is a teaser of what you can expect. Now, Tarja herself needs no introduction, so to try to explain what she is, who she is, and what she does is almost like metal law. You understand it. You know, she's got a hugely operatic range, a fantastic, very wide-stretching voice that is able to do a lot of great things. So if you hear one of her albums, there's a very good chance that the vocal performance that you get is going to be solid regardless. She's just, she's really a marvel. And marvel is the best word to use. Now, whenever it comes to actually doing any sort of criticism for her work, it's based off of the songwriting. Does the songwriting feel like it has a lot of motion to it? Does it support her very well? Or does it seem like she's just sort of lost and bored within the composition? So these 9 tracks are a little bit different. There is some collaboration that's in here. There's a couple of covers as well. So we're going to just talk about this very briefly. No Bitter End being the first track on this disc. It introduces you to it with a little bit of high, intense, a little bit more motion, very kinetic track that definitely showcases her range. It goes into Your Heaven and Your Hell, which is the first of the 2 collaborations, actually 3 that she does on this disc. And this includes Michael Monroe, who's, of course, formerly a member of Hanoi Rocks, may still be. It depends on whether or not they're still active. I actually don't know. I'll admit that freely. But this is really interesting, considering if you know anything about Hanoi Rocks, know anything about Michael Monroe, you know that he likes to throw a saxophone in the mix. These are compositions that Tarja goes with that have some classical composition to go alongside of it. So you do hear Mike opt to use his sax a little bit on this song. You hear his register, which offsets hers to make a nice balance. And really, the one thing that you'll notice if this is your first rodeo within Tarja country is that every track, for whatever reason, it feels very cinematic. It feels very much like it's meant for the stage, not just meant for your ears. It's meant for her to perform live, and also meant to have a lot of motion behind it. Either that, or perhaps even like you were writing something that was to be used in a musical. That's the one thing that does make a lot of her albums and a lot of her work rather captivating, because there is a certain real imaginative level that goes along with these tracks that really causes your mind to go on overdrive, which is not a bad thing. Now, of course, the pervs out there are just thinking, ooh, what if she's singing like that while she's hoofling my doofaling? But for those of us who have a little bit more creativity, at least there's a setting behind it that's not your house. So then you go with the Eagle Eye, which is featuring Chad Smith of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's their drummer, but here he also sings. A little fun known fact, he's Chickenfoot, and he is also a part of his own project where he does sing, so he does have a lot of background to him. This is a really good song. I really dig the overall composition of this, and then I also love what follows it. What follows it is An Empty Dream and Witch Hunt, and these 2 tracks really capture that whole cinematic, that whole really made for musical feel. Principally because these are slower songs that really let the power of Tarja's voice guide the track, and it guides it not only compositionally, but it guides it very much so emotionally, and by doing so, it creates a bond between her as the vocalist and you as the listener, considering you're sort of taking these journeys, whether they be of the mind or of the heart, along with her. You're kind of going along with this ride. She's almost telling her story, or telling a story through song, which certainly creates an interesting dynamic. And these 2 tracks are very strong in the fact that at certain points, the music is almost minimalistic. You don't need an extreme amount of motion whenever you have such a talented vocalist at your behest, principally because you have with you a powerful instrument. You have a guiding force in that instrument, and that's exactly what happens in both of these tracks. They are 2 highlights right smack dab in the middle of this release. Shameless is able to turn things back to a little bit more of a powerful register, a little bit more of the aggression, a little bit more of the kinesis. Love that word whenever it comes to really talking about motion and song, and you get that with Shameless. But then you get the House of Wax. House of Wax is the first of 2 covers that you get off of this album. This is an old Paul McCartney gem, and it's also the longest track on this album, nearly clocking in at 6 minutes. I like her handling of Paul. She's one that's able to really give it her own spin. She doesn't try to oversing it or oversell it, but also doesn't sell herself short. So that balance in this composition and this delivery is what gives it a lot of punch and what would probably make Paul very, very proud. Moving into track number 8, which is Goldfinger. This is, of course, a cover of the old theme song that was used for the Goldfinger film, the James Bond picture. And once again, this is something that's handled very respectfully, very reverently, and with a whole lot of flavor. And it's one that feels like there's a lot of time-honored feeling that Tarja has for these tracks whenever she opts to cover them. She does not opt to try to just completely change them to make them her own. She instead tries to retain a little bit of that original, mix, a little bit of that original feeling or emotion that's behind everything, and just opts to give and lend her voice, and only really fluctuates and only really deviates, only does anything that is considered over-the-top theatrical if necessary. And whenever it does happen, it usually feels very calculated. It also feels very necessary, almost as if she didn't do it, you would feel like something was a bit lacking. So nothing here feels like it's out of place. We finish up this album with Paradise, What About Us, which is Within Temptation along with Tarja. It's a brand new mix of this cut, 5.5 minutes nearly in length, and really whenever you consider this genre of music, and really whenever you consider female-fronted metal groups or rock groups in general, Within Temptation and Nightwish, of course, both come to mind. Tarja, of course, working with Nightwish for quite a while there. But this is just a great little sort of reimagining of that song. It's one that's, like I said, is just more of a new mix as opposed to a brand new, possession of it. It's instead one that just aims to, tweak it a little bit and give it a little bit more punch, which it really does accomplish. So, not much really to say about this overall whenever it comes to scoring and things like that. In fact, I think I'm going to hold off with giving this any kind of score in favor of waiting for the whole and in favor of waiting for the Shadow's Self. However, I did want to touch base with this, considering what you got. This eclectic mix of collaboration and cover and original definitely made this an interesting, a unique album, and one that, if you're a fan of what Tarja does, you're going to enjoy. So it's one that you shouldn't sleep on. I guess you could consider this album review to be a little bit more of me telling you to, even though there's the potential that you might just be able to get it with the future release of The Shadow's Self, you still pick it up for right now and enjoy it for the couple of months prior to that album's release. Sort of satisfy your fix a little bit. And by the time that comes out, you'll have played this to death and probably love a lot of what has been done. So check this one out if you have checked it out and want to reflect your comments and your feelings. Let me know in the comments below. Until then, I'm coverkillernation, and up next we're going to talk about Hell Yeah. Hell Yeah! Oh, hell